In this video, we are going to talk about UConn's victory in the first round over Jackson State, 86-64. As well, we are going to look forward to their opponent of the future, Syracuse. Have UConn learned their lesson regarding point guards? Before we start, if you like the content, then please consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. All right, let's get into this. As expected, UConn beat Jackson State by 22 points. How's my math? Crush me if I got it wrong. But yes, they controlled the game the whole way through. UConn got a little bit sluggish in parts, but otherwise it felt like they were fairly in control from the very start of the game. One of the first shots that Aaliyah Edwards took got blocked by the 6'6" Angel Jackson, which I thought was actually a good sign, as it showed that Aaliyah Edwards was still being aggressive and the broken nose was not going to hinder her. She adjusted as the game went along and went 8 for 13 for 20 points. As well, Paige Beckers was her usual brilliant self, going for 28 points and deadly efficient, 11 for 19 from the floor, 4 for 5 from the free throw line, 2 for 6 from three-point land, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, and 1 block, and no turnovers. And well, when you play that well, you're able to refer to your Hall of Fame coach who just turned 70 on that day as Gramps, which she did several occasions in the press conference.
He's like our grandpa. So super grateful and happy birthday, Grandpa.
Ashlyn Shade was there as well, and they had sort of mocking shirts of Gino Auriemma, and everybody seemed to be in a good mood in the postgame. My take was it was general relief. Auriemma talked about how, regardless of how good your team is, there's always a stress going into that first game. As you're asking yourself, did we do enough? Did we prepare for this or that? And just worrying that things would go wrong, and that's the nature of a coach, obviously. Auriemma also went on to say that he knew they were on a good thing when Beckers and Edwards were on their game early and that Edwards didn't have any hesitation. As well, he knew that they were a really good chance to control the game when Ashlyn Shade was hitting her shots. As it is not rocket science, you expect to get something out of Edwards and Beckers, like a high-level performance, but really to guarantee victory or give them a good shot at victory, they really need a third to come along with them, whether that be Ashlyn Shade, KK Arnold, or Nika Mule. And in this game, it was Shade who went 10 for 19, 5 for 11 from the three-point line for 26 points. The good thing about Auriemma is he's brutally honest and sort of says it as it is. I don't think he's talking down UConn's chances, but he's quite clear. They need everything to go right for them to win. If they don't shoot well, then more likely than not, they are not going to win the game. As well, they need to be led by their senior players, and Paige Beckers and Aaliyah Edwards obviously need to play well, and they need to get leadership from Nika Mule, and she needs to play solid at the very least. Auriemma is just matter of fact about UConn's chances, saying if it doesn't go our way, then we go on vacation early, and that's a positive for the coaches. Like, he's trying to see the silver lining in the dark cloud because he knows they only have one way to play due to their roster and all of the injuries, and they can't go mid-game and switch it up. It's either outshoot the teams for 3, win the turnover battle, and not get killed on the boards, and if that doesn't happen, then they're likely going home. And this hasn't been said, but I think the real goal for UConn is to hold on to the streak. I think it's been 29 years in a row where they have made it out of the first 2 rounds and gone on to Sweet 16. And if that happens again this year, then great. We go to Portland. We take our chances with all the freshmen. We've got superstar Beckers and Edwards, and let's go. We're playing with house money. You know, we've almost overachieved with all the injuries and issues and dramas we've had this season. He also talked about how he spoke to Paige Beckers prior to the game, like on the practice the day before, said, I wanted to speak to you after the practice, and asked her, do you know what I'm going to talk to you about? And she's like, yep, you need me. Do what I did in the Big East tournament, be a leader, take my shots, and lead from the front. And he's like, yep, she's got it. She understands what she needs to do. And she delivered in the first round, which was important as Jackson State had talent, I'm not sure if you saw Crump get the goaltend. She had some serious hops on her, and Angel Jackson was a strong player as well. But now it's on to stage two, and that is Syracuse. Now, I thought Arizona might get Syracuse as they've had a few losses recently. Her Hoops had two upset specials. One was Middle Tennessee over Louisville, which they nailed, and the other one they thought Arizona would get Syracuse, and I thought that might be the case as well. But Syracuse played well, and it felt like they sort of wore down Arizona towards the end of the game. And who knows, maybe Arizona had heavy legs from the previous play-in game as well. But regardless of what team got through, they were going to be a threat to UConn, and mainly that is due to the point guard. So Arizona has Jada Williams, the freshman, who's lighting it up. But as well, even more deadly is Syracuse, who has fifth-year senior point guard Dyaisha, who transferred from Buffalo in 2022-23 season, and she is lighting it up. So she goes for 22 points a game, 4.7 rebounds, 3.5 assists. She shoots 39% from the floor, and she is very comfortable from the three-point line, going for 37% beyond the arc. She is a bit loose with the ball, averaging 2 turnovers a game. But the thing that makes her so scary is that she's in the mold of Rory Harmon, who's 5'6", and Hannah Hidalgo, that's 5'6". Fair is 5'5". She's in that same mold. A quick little point guard. We know Roy Harmon tore up UConn at Texas. And the same thing, Hannah Hidalgo. UConn still has memories about that game. And in both of those games, UConn really struggled with the pick and roll. They got steals, and they were just an overall menace to UConn. If you look at their shot charts, both of them were just at the basket all day. That's where they did their damage. And that's your fear for Syracuse, as they are a good offensive rebounding team, and then just staying in front of the point guard, and you just don't want it to turn into their second worst loss at home. So their worst loss at home this year was to Notre Dame, in my opinion, as that was a game you had the alumni back. Taurasi was back in the building, and you thought, here we go. They've rebuilt over the Big East, and we're going to show how good we are. And they got their hats handed to them by Notre Dame and Hannah Hidalgo. Syracuse went 1-1 versus Louisville. They got the home win in controversial circumstances. I know Jeff Walz was unhappy about that, but Syracuse should not be taken lightly. They are a significant threat to UConn, keeping the record intact and making it 30 straight years that they have gotten out of the first 2 rounds of the NCAA women's tournament. I expect Beckers and Edwards to play well. The question will be, Nika Mule, she needs to have a very solid game. Like, she had a couple of silly fouls in the game versus Jackson State today. She fouled the girl on the three-point line. I understand it was a touch foul, and she disagreed, but she gets herself in trouble with her aggressiveness, and she needs to stay out of foul trouble. Well, they all do. Their goose is cooked if Edwards gets in foul trouble, obviously. But I think they need a strong game from Nika Mule and make sure that she keeps the turnovers down as well. If you remember versus Notre Dame, she fouled out early in the fourth quarter, and then once that happened, the game was basically over. Like, straight away, Notre Dame went on a run because she was the best chance to stay in front of Hannah Hidalgo. As well, if UConn locks in and gets this victory, then it's all gravy from here because there are no expectations. If they go down to Ohio State in the Sweet 16, they don't want to do that, obviously. They want to go on a magic run to the Final Four, and that would be tremendous. And it can happen because I've said this a number of times. If you have Paige Beckers and Aaliyah Edwards, then you have a chance. And it would be fun for UConn fans to go that way, to be the underdog crashing the Final Four. But we'll have to see what happens. As Gino says, they have to shoot well for that to happen. He said something, an explicative in terms of the ESPN super evil computer predicting that UConn had the second best chance of making it to the Final Four. He was not impressed by that, and I understand why, as it's a hard road to run depending on outside shooting to win all of your games.